All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to officially welcome those joining us from across the country and around the globe to the Coast Guard Academy's Class of 2026 Billet Night. A special welcome to all of the members of the Class of 1976, members of the Link in the Chain class who are continuing the long blue line. Thank you to the Coast Guard Academy Alumni Association, most notably the Class of 1995, for their generous support of this evening's events. It is now my honor to introduce my friend, Rear Admiral Rothrock, the 44th Superintendent of the Coast Guard Academy. During the class of 1995's Billet Night, amidst the sea of odd years, First Class Cadet Rothrock received orders to the Coast Guard Cutter Confidence as a student engineer. Rear Admiral Rothrock has since served with great distinction for nearly 31 years. He has held many positions of great responsibility, most recently as the J7 Director of Force Development at the United States Cyber Command. Please join me in welcoming your Superintendent, Rear Admiral Rothrock.
Well, thank you, Captain Ensley, and good evening. Good evening to our distinguished guests, senior leaders, families, friends, and most importantly, the incredible class of 2026. Welcome to Billet Night. To our distinguished visitors and leadership from across the service who've joined us this evening, Admiral List, thank you for being in full regalia. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. Your presence sends a powerful message to these soon-to-be ensigns that the fleet is ready for them and eager to welcome them aboard. Class of 2026, you can feel it in the room. The anticipation, nervous energy, how proud we all are of you. This is one of those rare milestones you will remember for the rest of your lives. Long after cutters have commissioned and then decommissioned, units have been established and later renamed, and your classmates begin to retire or spend 30 years in the service and later go on to be the commandant, you will remember where you were this evening and how it felt when your name was called and you came to this stage. Now, nearly 4 years ago, you arrived here as swabs, uncertain, ambitious, but determined. And since that day, you've been tested. Your leadership, your knowledge, your fitness, and your character. And you've stood the watch. You've led your peers, you've competed on fields and courts, you've sailed through heavy weather, and you learned what it truly means to serve something larger than yourselves. Everything we do at this academy is grounded in a simple but demanding objective: to graduate engaged, competent, and credible leaders of character. Fleet-ready ensigns, ready to lead day one. Tonight is evidence to that mission in action. Each billet that you will receive represents trust. Trust that you are ready to lead Coast Guard men and women. Trust that you will lead your assigned teams to accomplish assigned missions. Trust that you are prepared to make decisions when the stakes are high. Trust that you will uphold our core values when no one is watching. In just a few short months, you will report to cutters, sectors, air stations, and units across the world. You will con cutters through congested waterways, launch small boats into the dark night, conduct boardings, manage complex prevention cases, steward resources, and care for the crews entrusted to you. Lives and missions will depend on your judgment. If my math is correct, there are now just 76 days until commencement. And I will have the opportunity to see every single one of you walk across that stage on Cadet Memorial Field. But before we get there, pause for a moment. Look to your left and look to your right. Well done. These are your classmates. They're going to be your lifelong shipmates. You've grown together here on this campus. Soon, though, you will disperse throughout the service. But you will remain connected by your experiences in this place and here tonight. Now, I have absolute confidence in you. I've only known you a short 7 months, but I believe deeply that you will leave this academy ready. Not just technically proficient, but grounded in humility, resilience, and integrity. The fleet doesn't need perfect ensigns. It needs engaged leaders who listen, learn, and lead from the front. And that's exactly what you are prepared to be. So, enjoy this moment, embrace the excitement, and celebrate this opportunity to serve. So class of 2026, the Coast Guard is counting on you. And I know you will do great things. So, do you want to get started? Let's show this team, though, how it's done first. You've got an amazing group of faculty, staff. I think we got the OCs up top who have come to see this tonight. All here to support you and watch your excitement. So what do we say? We say, go Coast Guard! Go Guard! Captain, back to you.
Thank you, Admiral. At this time, I would like to ask Admiral Rothrock, Captain Marcial, Command Master Chief Birch, Dr. Rose, Captain Gennaro from the great class of 2004, and Dr. Rodebush from our Link in the Chain class to join us on stage. Come on up. All right, 2026. Are you ready to get salty? Now, for our first assignment. First Class McNamara, First Class Bird. And First Class Bird, please join me on stage. This cutter's official motto is First in the Fleet, as she was the first ship in her class. She was commissioned in June 1964. She was the first Coast Guard cutter equipped with a flight deck and successfully prototyped shipboard helicopter interoperability, marking a new era in Coast Guard operations. You may open your orders. Now, for our next assignment. First Class Wright, First Class Lindsay, please join me on stage. This cutter's motto is Service, Excellence, Professionalism. Her primary mission is to maintain and service aids to navigation, tending to 117 floating buoys all across the Gulf Coast. You may open your orders. Now for our next assignment. First Class Edwards, First Class Taylor, First Class Lewandowski, First Class Godshock, First Class Coyle, First Class Leone. This cutter is the 6th in a long and proud line to bear her name. Homeported in the Low Country, she has sailed the Black Sea, the Baltic, the Mediterranean, and the Caribbean seas, and the Pacific Ocean for SAR, counter-narcotics, and many other missions. She has a heraldic unicorn at the top of her crest, and her motto is Vigilant Sentinel. You may open your orders. Now for our next assignment. First Class Brinker, First Class Gulietta, First Class Zulinski. One of these cutters owns the motto, Protector of the Islands. One cutter was commissioned in 2017 and is named after the first enlisted helicopter mechanic in naval history. And another one of these cutters has the motto, Heart of the Sea. The final cutter has the motto of Unrelenting Courage. You may open your orders. Now for our next assignment. First Class Schaufelberger, First Class Schuster. Please join me on stage. This cutter's motto begins, Legends begin here, and was the first commissioned cutter in her class. Commissioned in 2008, she is homeported in Alameda, California, and last year she completed a 130-day Bering Sea deployment operating as far north as the Arctic Circle to patrol the United States and Russia boundary, enforcing fisheries regulation through constant fisheries boardings. You may open your orders. Now for our next assignment. First Class Miles, First Class Denton, First Class Gaines. Please join me on stage. This cutter was commissioned on 16 March 1984 in Tacoma, Washington as the second cutter of her class. She currently homeports in Portsmouth, Virginia with many of her sister ships. A multi-mission law enforcement cutter, she is deployed as far west as the Galapagos and as far east as the Gulf of Guinea, supporting counter-drug, migrant interdiction, and numerous other missions. You may open your orders. Now for our next assignment. First Class Mancini, First Class Oding, First Class Martin, First Class Irving, and First Class Hobbs. Please join me on stage. These units have been part of our service for over a century. They trace their origins back to 1915, responsible for collecting essential information, distributing it across the organization, and maintaining records that support law enforcement missions. Is there 5? Are we missing one? There should be 5. You may open your orders. Now, for our next assignment, First Class McAllister, First Class Walsh, First Class Milankoski, and First Class Haggerty. The nickname of these cutters are the Tinder of the Tropics and Tinder of the Capes. One of these units is responsible for more than 180 aids of navigation in an AOR from South Carolina to New Jersey. You may open your orders. Now, for our next assignment. First Class Wildsmith, First Class Kunetsov, First Class Peterin, First Class Detza, First Class Stanisowski, and First Class Ty. At these units, officers stand as the frontline guardians of Coast Guard technology, ensuring mission-critical systems remain resilient against evolving threats. Officers in this specialty operate fluently between operational and mission support domains, providing safeguards against adversaries and threats to enterprise IT while maximizing operational readiness. You may open your orders. Now, for our next assignment. First Class Klinger, First Class Whalen, First Class Visley, and First Class Lomax. Please join me on stage. This cutter is named for the fierce Algonquin tribe of Iroquois Indians. It is also the youngest cutter of her class. She continues to uphold her motto as the world's finest lifesaver, enforcer, and defender. This cutter has had many successful patrols across the Eastern Pacific, Caribbean Sea, Florida Straits, and West African coast. You may open your orders. Now, for our next assignment. First Class Condon, First Class Daniel Gibson, First Class Fredericks, First Class Yee, First Class Kang, and First Class Edmondson. Please join me on stage. This unit was established in 2013 in response to the growing threat of malware and ransomware to U.S. maritime infrastructure. This unit's mission is guided by 3 lines of effort, and this unit's JOs will work hand in hand with U.S. Cyber Command. You may open your orders. Now, for our next assignment. First Class Peterson, First Class Borman, please join me on stage. Commissioned in 2000, this remains the Coast Guard's largest cutter, displacing 16,000 tons. Homeported in Seattle, Washington, this cutter recently returned from an Arctic deployment and can break approximately 4 feet of ice continuously or twice that via backing and ramming. You may now open your orders. Now for our next assignment. First Class Holbrooks, First Class Cooperman, First Class Nystrom. Please join me on stage. This cutter is the last cutter of their class on the West Coast. Commissioned in 1966 and originally homeported in Newcastle, New Hampshire, the nickname of this cutter is Little Tough Guy. Your home port is at the top left corner of America at the entrance to Olympic National Park. You may open your orders. Now for our next assignment. First Class Wong, First Class Park, First Class Salayan, First Class Trevor Parks, and First Class Tabit. Please join me on stage. These units empower their officers to solve real-world problems every day and value team members that excel in highly autonomous positions. As part of the mission support community, these units engage in all elements of the U.S. Coast Guard: people, money, assets, programs, and acquisitions. You may open your orders. Now for our next assignment. First Class Verlin Gibson, First Class Zavala, First Class Bangsoy, First Class Della Vega, First Class Flores, First Class Singh, First Class Ta, First Class Ilialu. You will be returning to serve in your home countries, and we have been enriched by your presence here at the Academy. Best of luck in all your future endeavors. We look forward to working with you on the high seas and seeing you at class reunions. You may open your orders. Thank you for enriching us with your presence for 4 years. And now for our next assignment. First Class Coles, First Class Wasson, First Class Scherer, First Class Parent, First Class White. Aptly given the motto, heroism under fire, one of these cutters is named after a World War II hero and Silver Star recipient who rescued stranded crews whose vessels had been destroyed by enemy fire. One of these cutters was commissioned in 2024 and is the first class of its cutter to be boarded in the District Northwest. The motto for another cutter is initiative, courage, and fortitude. You may open your orders. And now for our next assignment, First Class Dush, First Class Carbonell, First Class Freeman, please join me on stage. This unit is the single logistics center for the Coast Guard surface fleet, providing engineering, maintenance, supply, and technical information services to 242 cutters and over 1,800 boats stationed throughout the United States. This unit's workforce is comprised of approximately 1,800 employees all over the United States. You may open your orders. Now for our next assignment, First Class Tripke, First Class Maura Murphy. Please join me on stage. This cutter is homeported in Portsmouth, Virginia, alongside 6 other 270-foot ships, and is the 7th cutter of the MEC 270-foot class. This cutter is equipped to support operations in the Atlantic, the Caribbean, and the Pacific. Incoming officers can expect to participate in missions all over the world. You may open your orders. Now for our next assignment. First Class Mesa, First Class Leah Harris, First Class San Nicolas. The motto of one of these cutters is first to serve, and was the first of her class to arrive at her distant home port. Named after a 9/11 police officer and Coast Guard hero, this newest cutter of her class is set to complete her first trans-Pacific voyage this summer. You may open your orders. Now for our next assignment. First Class Nahara, First Class Emma Beal, First Class Somer, First Class Connolly. Sorry. This cutter's namesake was the first chief journalist of the United States Coast Guard, the first African American to reach the rank of Chief Petty Officer, and the Pulitzer-winning, prize-winning author of Roots. This back-to-back Hopley Eaton Cutter of the Year winner safeguards over 1 million square miles of the roughest seas and most remote islands in the Coast Guard's most austere AOR. You may open your orders. Now for our next assignment. First Class McLaughlin, First Class Sakharov, First Class Villegas Sanchez. This cutter's motto is courage, justice, compassion. Built in Newport, Rhode Island and commissioned in 1988, she is the 3rd ship to bear this name. Following the 9/11 attacks, this cutter was the first major military asset on scene, taking charge of more than 30 Coast Guard cutters and small boats in New York Harbor. You may open your orders. Now for our next assignment. First Class Carrie Lee, First Class Stevens, First Class Bateman, First Class Bell, First Class Basque, and First Class Babcock. This cutter was commissioned in 2019 with her sister ship in a joint ceremony and is the 8th of 10 cutters in her class. This cutter's namesake comes from a Coast Guard member whose family history began. You may open your orders. Now for our next assignment. First Class Throne, First Class Weiss, First Class John Carlos Lee. One of these cutters' official's motto is none better. She was commissioned in September 1968 after construction in Lorain, Ohio. Another cutter's motto is fame through good deeds. She is commissioned in December 1966 and over the decades has had several home ports throughout the United States. One of these cutters just won the 2025 Hopley Eaton Cutter Excellence Award. You may open your orders. Now for our next assignment. First Class Warnicki, First Class Cimarrod, First Class Pinella, First Class Olachowski, First Class Palacios Camacho, and First Class Farias. Please join me on stage. This cutter's motto, we can't afford not to. This cutter is named after the first woman to be accepted in the Women's Reserve, who coined the name SPAR. Michelle Obama was present for the commissioning ceremony, making her the first lady to co-sponsor a cutter. You may open your orders. Now for our next assignment. First Class Lanzalota, First Class Schroeder, First Class Gamble, First Class Sicati, First Class Carlander, and First Class Rhodes. Around the nation, these officers take part in nearly every Coast Guard mission, from assisting with the establishment of crucial aids to navigation to conducting medical transportation. Working in small groups, these officers show true adaptability and technical acumen each and every day. Save your money, shipmates. You're going to need it for a flight suit. You may open your orders. Now for our next assignment. First Class Judge, First Class Shipman, please join me on stage. This cutter was commissioned in 1998 in her home port of Key West and is the third to bear the name of the Greek goddess and mother to Achilles. In 2019, this unit deployed to U.S. Africa Command and the U.S. 6th Fleet. You may open your orders. Now for our next assignment. First Class Victor Parks, First Class Giesbrecht, First Class Gonzalez, First Class Kwan, First Class Pizanka, and First Class Watts. Please join me on stage. This cutter's official motto is lead, train, and save. The cutter's unofficial motto is the Hawaiian sea voyaging proverb, wield the paddles together, work together. Constructed in Pascagoula, Mississippi, and commissioned in 2019, she is the 7th hull of her class. Incoming officers can look forward to representing the United States from Aztec shore to Arctic zone. You may open your orders. Now for our next assignment. First Class Core, First Class Kodo, First Class Stotts, First Class Madison Murphy, First Class Waring. Please join me on stage. One of these units ensures the safety and security of the marine transportation system in the nation's busiest petrochemical port. One of these units moved from one island in '96 to another island down in Staten Island. Another of these units heroically responded to one of the most consequential superstorms of our time. This unit has waterways that kill to be recognized. You may open your orders. Now, for our next assignment. First Class Callao, First Class Talapa. Please join me on stage. One of these cutters recently shifted home ports in 2021 and also altered their beautiful scenery from palm trees and beaches to beautiful mountains and Alaskan wildlife. The motto of another cutter is translated from Hawaiian to mean workhorse of the Pacific and is now home ported elsewhere with the new nickname of Keeper of the Northern Lights. You may open your orders. Now, for our next assignment. First Class Pole, First Class Persefield. Please join me on stage. This cutter's motto is tradition, pride, readiness. Its unofficial motto is Sinbad lives, in reference to the dog Chief Sinbad, who lived with the crew of the previous cutter during World War II. She was commissioned in August '98 after construction in Middletown, Rhode Island. And one of you will get comfortable looking at the landing signals officer as they direct you in for a touch and go. You may open your orders. Now for our next assignment. First Class Allen, First Class Granahan, First Class Benet Gabel, First Class Gorman. Please join me on stage. Named after the 15th U.S. Treasury Secretary and the 5th Coast Guard cutter to bear its name, this cutter's predecessors carried out various missions in support of the Mexican-American War, the Civil War, Prohibition, and the U.S. Lighthouse Service. You may open your orders. Now for our next assignment. First Class McCallion, First Class Binstead, First Class Chavez, First Class Wise, and First Class Preener. Prior to 2005, this unit was known as MSO, responsible for Captain of the Port Authorities. In 2005, the MSO and groups were decommissioned and a sector was established in its place, merging all Coast Guard units in their areas of responsibility under one command. You may open your orders. Now for our next assignment. First Class Matthew Clark, First Class Polite, First Class Garcia, First Class Rodriguez, and First Class Holden. Please join me on stage. This cutter was commissioned in 2010, making her the second cutter in her class, homeported in Alameda, California. The two mottos of this cutter are strength, endurance, service, and second to none. This cutter's namesake is the Coast Guard's longest-serving commandant, who integrated the lighthouse service into the United States Coast Guard and created the Coast Guard Reserve. You may open your orders. Now for our next assignment. First Class James Johnson, First Class Kepper, First Class Bolin, First Class Easley, please join me on stage. These cutters patrol the Gulf of America with a primary mission of supporting the nation's illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing strategic plan. One cutter lives up to her motto of gallantry in action and has proven instrumental on the maritime boundary line many, many times. You may open your orders. Now for our next assignment. First Class Langton, First Class Schmidt, First Class Beto. Please join me on stage. This cutter's predecessor served in World War II, playing a vital role in the Battle of the Atlantic, completing 18 escorts and sinking 2 German U-boats in 1943. Her keel was laid in 1982, and she recently completed the first full production of the WMEC SLEP program. You may open your orders. Now, for our next assignment, First Class Beal. Please join me on stage. All right, give it a second, everyone. Admiral Rothrock asked me to speak about the history and the recent operations of each of our units as we call up your class. But I'm not going to do that. This cutter has the hardest working, the most dedicated, and the most competent sailors in our fleet. They never quit, they never back down, and they are the saltiest crew in the fleet. You may open your orders. Now for our next assignment. First Class Bomber, First Class Pearson, First Class Theobald. Please join me on stage. The motto of this cutter is Ready to Act. She was commissioned in May 1969, 2 months before mankind landed on the moon. This cutter was initially homeported here in New London, Connecticut, and she was the first assignment of the current ruler of the world's oceans. You may open your orders. Now for our next assignment. First Class Long, First Class Putnam, First Class Waters. Please join me on stage. These cutters are among the newest in the Coast Guard's fleet of multi-mission ships that perform drug and migrant interdiction, ports, waterways, and coastal security, fisheries patrols, search and rescue, and national defense. One of these cutters' namesakes earned a Silver Star Medal for his contribution during World War II. You may open your orders. Now for our next assignment. First Class Lynch, First Class Van Cise, First Class Lempriere, First Class Orsuluk, and First Class Garrett. Please join me on stage. These units are multi-mission platforms that protect against illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing practices throughout Oceania, in addition to servicing aids throughout their 12 million square mile AOR. You may open your orders. Now for our next assignment. First Class Wheaton, First Class Bazzelli, First Class Bunch, First Class Fit, First Class Michaelick, First Class Whiteway. Please join me on stage. This cutter was commissioned in August 8th, 2015 as the 5th cutter in her class. Her namesake was an American sea captain and life-saving service station keeper who is a recipient of the Gold Life-Saving Medal and has been credited with saving over 600 lives. The unofficial motto of this cutter is "We own the night." You may open your orders. Now for our next assignment. First Class Hilden, First Class Akulski, First Class Pandorf, First Class Balzer. Please join me on stage. Honoring their motto, the will to serve, courage to protect, one of these cutters played a critical role in Operation Vigilant Sentry through the interdiction of over 500 migrants in 2024. Named after a Gold Life-Saving Medal and recipient and commissioned in 2015, the cutter is 12th in her class. You may open your orders. Now, for our next assignment. First Class Morlack, First Class Hagner, please join me on stage. This cutter's motto is forging a path with strength and honor. The unit was featured on the History Channel television series Modern Marvels and is one of a kind. She conducts 2 critically important missions along the northern border. You may open your orders. Now, for our next assignment. First Class Patrick, First Class Von Y, First Class Kim, First Class Guillory. Please join me on stage. The motto of this cutter is a tradition of honor, a legacy of action. This cutter was built in Rhode Island and in 2020 moved its home port from Boston to Portsmouth, Virginia. Law enforcement is her primary mission, though she is capable of serving other missions as well. One of you will spend much more time looking at the weather and counting all the sleep you're going to get. You may open your orders. Now for our next assignment. First Class Miller, First Class Morris, First Class Mallison, First Class Bellowburk, First Class Bilbert, First Class Wolf. Please join me on stage. In July 2025's catastrophic hill country flooding in Texas, Coast Guard crews fought through near impossible storms to reach Camp Mystic and airlifted terrified campers to safety. An operation marked by calm under pressure, precision in chaos, unwavering resolve, and lots of sunglasses. You may open your orders. Now for our next assignment. First Class Golden, First Class Riggs, First Class Kraus Rivera, First Class Grimm, please join me on stage. This cutter is named after the niece of the 15th President of the United States and bears the unofficial motto of the desired effect in reference to her namesake's revenue cutter, which fired the first naval shot of the Civil War. She was commissioned in 1984 as the 3rd 270-foot medium endurance cutter and was recently re-home ported to Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. You may open your orders. Now for our next assignment. First Class Counts, First Class Lazarian, First Class Romano, First Class Ruan, First Class Woodburn, First Class Farrell. These regional specialized units operate with the Shore Infrastructure Logistics Center and plan, design, and execute construction, maintenance, repair projects, and shore facilities. They ensure operational readiness by managing facilities like piers, housing, and communication towers. And one of you may soon have one of the most proficient mission support officers as your new commanding officer. You may open your orders. Now for our next assignment. First Class Hartman, First Class Boudreau, and First Class McKenzie. Please join me on stage. One of these cutters is named after a hero who in 1936 died heroically at his oars, still holding his position in a rescue skiff after saving 2 ice fishermen on Lake Michigan. During World War II, the namesake for one of these cutters crawled into a burning ammunition compartment aboard a Navy ship to save his crewmates. You may open your orders. Now for our next assignment. First Class Massel, First Class Rivera, please join me on stage. This cutter was commissioned in 1969 after construction at the Coast Guard Yard in Baltimore, Maryland. The cutter has twin 2,500 horsepower diesel engines, which offer superior maneuverability while sustaining a motivated crew of 76 members. Since moving from Astoria, Oregon, the cutter has now completed its first patrol in support of District Southeast. You may open your orders. Now for our next assignment. First Class Marshall, First Class Lisa Sobenvovsky, First Class Adequar, First Class Bu Yun, and First Class Flowers, please join me on stage. At these units, you'll stand watch responding to distress calls and plan search patterns to locate missing mariners. You'll perform missions for coastal security, living marine resources, law enforcement, and much more. You may become an expert on federal environmental law and regulations as well. You may open your orders. Now for our next assignment. First Class Snyder, First Class Bissett, First Class Walcott, please join me on stage. These cutters' nicknames are the Maine Responder and New England Workhorse. These cutters provide service to over 315 aids to navigation along the rugged New England coastline and beyond, spanning from New York Harbor to the Canadian border. You may open your orders. Now for our next assignment. First Class Coons, First Class Liscombe, First Class Riera, and First Class Henry. Please join me on stage. The AOR for these multi-mission cutters is composed of more than 156,000 square miles of oceans, bays, rivers, wetlands, and tidal marshes. These cutters hold some impressive namesakes, including a seaman who was awarded a Silver Star in World War II, a Coast Guard hero who gave his life conducting a maritime intercept operation in the Persian Gulf. You may open your orders. Now for our next assignment. First Class DeGiorgio, First Class Badani, First Class Cosma, and First Class Kedish. Please join me on stage. These are specialized deployable task units tasked with protecting ports, waterways, and coastal areas through rapid response maritime security operations. One of these units spends each day preparing for and executing high-risk maritime law enforcement missions, sharpening their skills through rigorous tactical drills, weapons handling, and coordinated movement exercises. You may open your orders. Take a photo. Now for our next assignment. First Class Nathaniel Johnson, First Class Gavin Clark, First Class Boulay, please join me on stage. With the motto, Gallantry in Action, this cutter was commissioned in 2017, and past cutters of the same name have been homeported in Dutch Harbor, Alaska. This cutter's namesake is part of an iconic Washington native duo who joined the Coast Guard in 1939. You may open your orders. Now, for our next assignment. First Class Holmes Selby, First Class Banks, First Class Key Hyas. Please join me on stage. This cutter was previously known as the Ivik, a commercial anchor handling tug supply vessel required to address immediate Arctic icebreaking needs. The ship's name means Great Ice in Scandinavian and honors the original cutter's legendary 1942 to 2007 cutter, who is known as the Galloping Ghost of the Alaskan coast. You may open your orders. Now for our next assignment. First Class Booze, First Class Mooring, First Class Spada, First Class Gazelle Johnson, First Class Smith, First Class Burrows. Please join me on stage. Officers in this specialty spend up to 2 years of training before joining the operational fleet. You will be picked to specialize in one of 5 primary platforms. A 6th platform placing you in close contact with Coast Guard and DHS senior leaders is also later available. You may open your orders. Now, for our next assignment, First Class No Cerrito and First Class Rue, please join me on stage. One of you may already know where you're going. I hope you prepped a first aid kit. Incoming officers to the 2nd unit can look forward to patrolling these cutters' 1.3 square mile AOR in the Eastern Caribbean with an emphasis on counter-narcotics, migrant interdiction, and search and rescue. That cutter's motto is courage in the storm, and new officers need to survive the Mayaguez monster. You may open your orders. Now for our next assignment. First Class Jones, First Class Bush, First Class Rao Gaki, First Class Lon Zafami. Please join me on stage. The motto of this cutter is energy, efficiency, courage. This cutter's namesake is Coast Guard Aviator number 1 and the first person ever to complete a transatlantic flight. Following his career in aviation, he wisened up and returned to sea duty. You may open your orders. Now for our next assignment. First Class Rostowski, First Class Robledo Thompson, First Class Markham Burgos, and First Class Cole, please join me on stage. These cutters have recently completed home port shifts and now claim some of the coldest home ports in the Coast Guard. Pack your parkas. Named after one of the world's largest trees, one of these cutters is the newest in her class, being the 15th. You may open your orders. Now for our next assignment. First Class Bartz, First Class Mellon, First Class Sussman, First Class Boyer, First Class Ducat. Please join me on stage. This is the only cutter that was built by the aerospace and weapons manufacturer Lockheed Martin, and the only cutter that interacts with penguins. The cutter's motto is, "May she sail through turbulent seas," and she has traveled further north than any other U.S. surface vessel during the winter. You may open your orders. Now for our next assignment. First Class Gina Sobanovsky, First Class Schenk, and First Class Cooper. Please join me on stage. This cutter is the first of 13 in its class, commissioned in February 1983, and is homeported in Portsmouth, Virginia. She is named after the steam barkentine who served as the first American law enforcement conducting missions along the newly purchased Alaska coastline. You may open your orders. Now for our next assignment. First Class Krajewski, First Class Holman, please join me on stage. The motto of one of these units is the ruler of the sea, and another is known as the fleet as the bartender. One of these cutters is responsible for 131 aids to navigation along the Washington and Oregon coast, with more than 35% of the Coast Guard's inventory of 9-foot buoys. That is random. You may open your orders. Now for our next assignment. First Class Reynolds, First Class Jensen, First Class Fontana, First Class Keister, First Class Chapman, First Class Nuno. Please join me on stage. This cutter is the 10th and newest Legend Class cutter in the Coast Guard. It was commissioned in the spring of 2024. She is worldwide deployable, and incoming ensigns can expect to engage in all sorts of exciting missions. You may open your orders. Now for our next assignment. First Class Walker, First Class Pretty, First Class Koenig, First Class Mitrick, First Class Wynn. Please join me on stage. At these units, you'll master safety, security, and environmental compliance requirements for vessels of all types. You'll also certify U.S. commercial and foreign vessels for compliance with U.S. regulations and international treaties that ensure the safety of the maritime transportation system and protect the environment. You may open your orders. Now for our next assignment. First Class Short, First Class McAllen, please join me on stage. The sixth cutter of this namesake. The cutter is 60 years young and boasts the motto, courage, honor, tenacity. Originally residing in Wilmington, North Carolina, this cutter has been homeported in one of only 14 official Coast Guard cities since 1992. But like most her age, she moved to Pensacola, Florida. You may open your orders. Now for our next assignment. First Class Murray, First Class Spencer, First Class Swanson, please join me on stage. These units ensure Coast Guard cutters, cyber, IT, and small boats remain operational through maintenance, logistics, and infrastructure support. Without this foundation, frontline missions, whether SAR, law enforcement, and environmental response, would not succeed. As leaders, you'll rely on these support systems and these professionals who keep them running, reinforcing their importance. You may open your orders. Now for our next assignment. First Class Stonebreaker, First Class Boggs, First Class Aria Izeria, First Class Nathan Harris. Please join me on stage. One of these cutters' namesakes was named for the station keeper of the Green Island Life Saving Station, who received the prestigious Congressional Gold Life Saving Medal. One of these cutters' mottos is against all odds. Another of these cutters holds the motto of courageous devotions. And one of these cutters is the 7th Coast Guard vessel to bear its name. You may open your orders. Now for our next assignment. First Class Thistle, First Class Love, First Class Spinato, First Class Hardy. Please join me on stage. This cutter's official motto is Aztec Shore to Arctic Zone, a nod to our favorite song. She was commissioned in December 1984 after construction in Tacoma, Washington, and during its 2024 Operation Nanook deployment, the cutter traveled more than 8,000 miles, operating alongside Canada, Danish, and U.S. naval forces. You may open your orders. And now for our last assignment. First Class Rogers, First Class Solkovic, First Class Kellerer, First Class Forty, First Class Bowman, First Class LaFours. Please join me on stage. During a recent patrol, one of these cutters repatriated 73 migrants to Cuba and the Bahamas and saved 2 lives on a SAR case. One of these ships was previously commanded by the current ruler of the world's oceans. And namesakes for these units include the first African-American Coast Guardsman and many, many others. You may open your orders. Congratulations, guys. You stay. All of them. Class of 2026, congratulations on this outstanding milestone in your careers. Now, before I turn the microphone over to Lieutenant Glasshagel, I want to thank all those who put this together. Most importantly, our team of nautical science lieutenants and our co-conspirators from the class of 2026. Please, thank you. "2026, these are great billets. You have earned them. We all look forward to seeing your achievements in the fleet. Stay salty."
Thank you, Captain Ensley, for serving as our MC tonight. The class of 2026 would like to formally thank you for your participation along with our billet presenters. I would now like to invite 2026's class president, First Class Riera, to join me on stage. The two of you, too. Yes.
On behalf of the entire class of 2026, I would like to thank the Academy faculty and staff and all the unit representatives for celebrating us tonight. To the class of 1976 representatives, thank you for being with us as our link in the chain. On behalf of 2026, I would like to present gifts to our MC, Captain Ensley, and all of our billet presenters. Thank you.
Thank you, First Class Riera. On behalf of the Superintendent, Rear Admiral Rothrock, thank you for joining us and celebrating the class of 2026's Billet Night. Social hour will commence until 2200 in Leamy Ballroom. Rear Admiral Rothrock has granted leave at will. Thank you all, and have a great night.